Hello, I'm back in the woods after several months. And in fact, it's only within the last couple of weeks it's been legal to sit down in the woods in Britain, or sit down outside anywhere. Until then, if you tried sitting down anywhere, the police would come along and arrest you. At least I think that's what happened. With the lockdown, I've been stuck indoors all the time. I live on my own, it's very boring. There's not very much to do and plenty of time to do it in, so I've picked up some quite bad habits. I've got so fat and lazy. My favourite pastime at the moment is playing World of Tanks online and drinking cherry flavoured Pepsi Max. The washing up builds up in the sink, long grass grows in the garden. I can't be bothered. It's just, you know, you've got so little to do and so much time to do it in. I know it's wrong, but I can't quite work out what to do, so I'm consulting my friend Seneca. What then is it which makes us lazy and sluggish? None of us reflects that someday we must depart from this house of life. You will find that the largest portion of our life passes while we are doing ill, a goodly share while we are doing nothing, and the whole while we are doing that which is not to the purpose. Playing World of Tanks, I think that means. What person can you show me that places any value on their time, who reckons the worth of each day, who understands that they are dying daily? For we are mistaken when we look forward to death. The major portion of death has already passed. Whatever years be behind us are in death's hands. I have read that section before. It applies to me, I know. Trouble is, if you live on your own, you can get into all sorts of bad habits. I did used to go to the public library and work there. It's much easier to work there. People are watching you. If you play World of Tanks, people are going to notice you're wasting your life. We can get rid of most sins if we have a witness who stands near us when we are likely to go wrong. And you might think, well, the current lockdown and the pandemic is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. What does it matter if you take it easy for a few weeks? Here's Seneca writing about being carried in a litter. He was a wealthy Roman statesman. He would have been carried around by his slaves. And he's writing when he himself has gotten into some bad habits. Even to be carried for any length of time is hard work, perhaps all the more so because it is an unnatural exercise. Nature gave us legs with which to do our own walking and eyes with which to do our own seeing. Our luxuries have condemned us to weakness. We have ceased to be able to do that which we have long declined to do. So that's obvious, isn't it? You know, I'm sat at home playing World of Tanks, getting fatter, getting out of condition, so that's a bad thing to do. And the Roman cure for this is obvious, but this isn't the real cure, what the video is about. This is just the physical side of it. The physician will prescribe your walks and your exercise. They will warn you not to become addicted to idleness, as it is the tendency of the inactive invalid. They will recommend the proper food and the suitable time for aiding your strength with wine, but it is a hardship, people say, to do without our customary pleasures, to fast, to feel thirst and hunger. These are indeed serious when one first abstains from them. Later, the desire dies down because the appetites themselves, which lead to desire, are wearied and forsake us. Then the stomach becomes petulant. Then the food which we craved before becomes hateful. Our very wants die away, but there is no bitterness in doing without which you have ceased to desire. But Seneca is much more concerned about the moral aspects of being lazy. I prefer to be in trouble rather than in luxury, and you had better interpret the term in trouble as popular usage is wont to interpret it, living a hard, rough, toilsome life. We hear the lives of certain people praised as follows when they are objects of unpopularity. So-and-so lives in luxury, but by this term they really mean they are softened by luxury, for the soul is weakened by degrees until it matches the ease and laziness in which it lies. Much difference is there between lying idle and lying buried. If you have an easy life, it's quite easy to become a slave to luxuries and pleasures, because, you know, if you have an easy life you can pick up all sorts of bad habits. It doesn't matter, you know. 10,000 years ago there'd probably been saber-toothed tigers in this area. 1,000 years ago Viking raiding parties would come to Britain and you had to fight them. If there were saber-toothed tigers or Vikings in this woods, being a big fat lump who plays World of Tanks all day would be a bad thing to do. In an easy life it doesn't matter. To a luxurious person, a simple life is a penalty. To the lazy, work is a punishment. The dandy pities the diligent. To the slothful, studies are a torture. We regard those things we don't like as hard and beyond endurance. These actions are not essentially difficult. It is we ourselves that have become soft and flabby. I'm not the only one that suffered from this. Here's an example of Hannibal, the chap who crossed the Alps with his elephants. A single winter relaxed Hannibal's fibre. His pampering in Campania took the vigour out of that hero who had triumphed over alpine snows. He conquered with his weapons, but was conquered by his vices. We too have a war to wage, a type of warfare in which there is allowed no rest or furlough. It actually says furlough in the translation. The soul is not to be pampered. He does realise that if you don't have anything to do, it's easy to get into bad habits, but he's not very sympathetic about it. If one were compelled to drop everything that caused trouble, life would soon grow dull amid sluggish idleness. But you say, is it not better even to lie idle than to whirl round in these eddies of business distraction? And he replies, both extremes are to be deprecated, both tension and sluggishness. I hold that those who lie on a perfumed couch are no less dead than he who is dragged along by the executioner's hook. Leisure without study is death. It is a tomb for the living. So there's the first time we get to what this whole video is about. Seneca and the ancient Romans believe study is the best way to spend your leisure time. No one can live a happy life or even a supportable life without the study of wisdom. You must persevere, must develop new strength by continuous study, until that which is only a good inclination becomes a good settled purpose. So, Stoicism, perseverance, in the same ways when you go on your diet and fast, and you must persevere, at least at first, because it'll be quite difficult, but hopefully then it gets easier. Oh, 16.5 stone. Virtue is aroused by a touch, a shock. Moreover, there are certain things which, though in the mind, yet are not ready to hand, but begin to function easily as soon as they are put into words. Certain things lie scattered about in various places, and it is impossible for the unpractised mind to arrange them in order. Therefore, we should bring them into unity and join them, so that they may be more powerful and more of an uplift to the soul. So that's what I'm doing now, isn't it? I've read some of these passages before. I haven't read them for a long time. I've half forgotten about them, but by making the video, I'm going around and I'm collecting them from their scattered places and putting them into words. I respect no study and deem no study good which results in money making. Hence you see why liberal studies are so called. It is because they are studies worthy of a free-born person. Okay, so we're not going for that. We shall learn something useful, and one day we shall earn some money from it, and one day that money might be helpful to us. The things Seneca wants us to learn are things that are interesting to us now and useful now. But there is only one really liberal study, that which gives us their liberty. It is the study of wisdom, and that is lofty, brave and great-souled. This might seem to you a bit circular. I want to find out the best way to live my life, because I've got into some bad habits, so I'm reading Seneca. And Seneca says, the thing you should do if you've got some leisure time is study how to live your life. Well, that's what I'm doing already. So how am I going to do my liberal studies? We ought not to confine ourselves either to writing or to reading. The one, continuous writing, will cast a gloom over our strength and exhaust it, and the other, which is reading, will make our strength flabby and watery. It is better to have recourse to them alternately, and to blend one with the other, so that the fruits of one's reading may be reduced to concrete form by the pen. Well, that's quite good advice, isn't it? If you've ever tried reading something you're only half interested in, it's quite easy to read it superficially. You think you've understood it, straight on to the next passage, maybe you forget half of it. If you've got to write it down, if you've got to make a YouTube video about it, you concentrate much more, you get much more out of it and produce something that's useful. What study am I going to do exactly? Cherish someone of high character and keep them ever before your eyes, living as if they were watching you, and ordering all your actions as if they beheld them. We can get rid of most sins if we have a witness who stands near us when we are likely to go wrong. The soul should have someone whom it can respect. If I study the right sort of person, possibly Seneca, or some other great thinker, someone in history I'm interested in, then that might help me to keep me on the straight and narrow. Choose someone whose life, conversation and soul-expressing face have satisfied you. Picture them always to yourself as your protector or your pattern. For we must indeed have someone according to whom we may regulate our character. You can never straighten that which is crooked, unless you use a ruler. So that's the theory. You might think, well done Seneca, he's written down something useful. Even after 2,000 years, people are still finding it useful. But Stoicism isn't about sitting in the woods and having some nice thoughts, reading some nice words. It's about going into the world and trying out the ideas. It's not a religion, there are no received truths. There's some useful things Seneca's written here. I have to go and try it out, maybe come up with my own ideas. On my bookcase, I've got an entire Roman encyclopedia written by Pliny the Elder. I've got all of Seneca's writings, I've got all of Cicero's writings. Plus, online, I've got access to hundreds of authors from ancient times. There's more ancient writings still surviving than it's possible to read in a whole lifetime. Plus, I've got the internet, there's lots of stuff on the internet. And just to think, I spent all my time playing World of Tanks. What's interesting though, Seneca knew when he was doing his studies that they would be useful to people in the future. I never spend a day in idleness. I appropriate even a part of the night for study. I do not allow time for sleep, but yield to it when I must, and when my eyes are wearied with waking and ready to fall shut. I have withdrawn not only from society, but from affairs, especially from my own. I am working for later generations, writing down some ideas that may be of assistance to them. There are certain wholesome counsels which may be compared to prescriptions of useful drugs. These I am putting into writing. I have found them helpful in ministering to my own sores, which, if not wholly cured, have at any rate ceased to spread. I point others to the right path, which I have found late in life when wearied with wandering. Such powerful medicine.